Hi, welcome back. We're going to start on the part 1A of the full stack open curriculum, Introduction to React. So we will now start getting familiar with probably the most important topic of this course, namely the React library. Let's start by making a simple React application as well as getting to know the core concepts of React. The easiest way to get started is by using a tool called Vite. Let's create an application called part 1 and navigate to its directory and install the libraries. Okay, so I will bring out um, my VS Code editor, and here I have part 0, which was from last video, and then I'll just create a directory called part 1, like they mentioned here. Um, okay, and then I like to use pnpm instead of npm, but you can use npm like they mentioned here, and it should be fine. So I think it's great. Write at latest. Um, actually, I need to get out of this directory and then do pnpm create write at latest part 1 template react. Yep, and now we have the boilerplate files that was created from um, the Vite package. And now we just cd into part 1 and then install the npm packages. Oh, there's an update. Okay, so I'll just update that later. So now I've installed the npm packages, and yeah, so we can then run npm run dev or pnpm dev, and then go to this, and here we see um, the started application. Yep, so we are on localhost 5173 as it's mentioned here. Open the browser and text and view the code as well as the web page at the same time on the screen. The code of the application resides in the src folder. Let's simplify the default code such that the content of the file main.js looks like this. Okay, so src and then main.js. Probably remove this, and then so we just copy this, add it into here. Um, and then the app.js should look like this. The file app.css and index.css and the assets may be deleted as well as they're not needed in the application right now. Okay, so we go into here, delete assets, app.css and index.css. Sorry, app.css and index.css. So now if we go in here, it's just hello world as implemented by this code here. Um, the files, okay, so create React app. Instead of Vite, you can also use the older generation to create React app in the course to set up the applications. The most visible difference to Vite is the name of the application startup file, which is index.js. The way to start the application is also different in CRA. It is started with a command npm start, in contrast to Vite's npm run dev. So we're just gonna continue using Byte because that's the newer generation tool. The component app.jsx now defines React component with the name app. The command on the final line of the file main.jsx. So this is the line here. Basically, it finds the root div or the element with the ID root, and then it renders the app component. Yes, so it renders the content to the div element defined in the file html.html. Oh, sorry, index.html, which is here. Oh no, it's here. So this is where the root div is. By default, the index.html doesn't contain any HTML markup that is visible to us in the browser. You can try adding there some HTML to the file. However, when using React, all content that needs to be rendered is usually defined as React components. Let's take a closer look at the code defining the component. So here, as you probably guessed, the component will be rendered as a div tag, which wraps a p tag containing the text hello world. Technically, the component is defined as a JavaScript function. The following is a function which does not receive any parameters. The function is assigned to the constant variable app. There are a few ways to define functions in JavaScript. Here we will use arrow functions, which are described in newer versions of JavaScript known as ECMAScript 6, also called ES6. Because the function consists only of a single expression, we have used a shorthand which represents this piece of code. Because the function consists only of a single expression, we have used a shorthand. In other words, the function returns the value of the expression. The function defining the component may contain any kind of JavaScript code. Modify your component as follows. So here we do a console log, and observe in the dev console here is the console log that we added from this line of code. The first rule of front-end web development: keep the console open all the time. Let us repeat this together. I promise to keep the console open all the time during this course and for the rest of my life when I'm doing web development. It's also possible to render dynamic content inside a component. Modify the component as follows. So this is the dynamic content. And then P, okay, so we just add this part of the code. So it looks like now is the new date. A is 10, B is 20, so we have console logging the date, and then this should evaluate to 30. Hello world, it is now, and then the time, date, and then 10 plus 20 is 30. So that should be on the web page itself. Yes, hello world, this is the date, and then 10 plus 20 is 30. And here we go. Here's the console log here. That's outputted by line 5. Any JavaScript code within the curly braces is evaluated, and the result of the evaluation is embedded into the defined place in the HTML produced by the component. Note that you should not remove the line at the bottom of the component. So this is exporting the app component, or yeah, so this is exporting this so that it can be used in main. It can be imported here and then rendered by the React DOM package. The export is not shown in most of the examples of the course material. Without the export, the component and the whole app breaks down. Did you remember your promise to keep the console open? What was printed out there? This is what's printed here. So JSX. It seems like React components are returning HTML markup. However, this is not the case. So it looks like in this JavaScript, in this JSX file, this looks like HTML, but it actually isn't HTML. The layout of React component is mostly written using JSX. Yes, so this is JSX instead of HTML. Although JSX looks like HTML, we are dealing with a way to write JavaScript. Under the hood, JSX is returned by React components under the hood, JSX returned by React components is compiled into JavaScript. After compiling, our application looks like this. So we use a thing called Babel, as mentioned here. The compilation is handled by Babel. So if we go to Babel, here's the REPL. Let me just remove the settings. Actually, yeah, here's the REPL. So we can write this code here, and as you can see, it gets compiled into this, which is JavaScript. It looks like HTML here, but let me just remove that. It looks like HTML here with the JSX, but this is JSX, and um, it gets converted into this. So this is a cleaner version of the same thing as this, and yeah, projects created with Create React App or Vite are configured to compile automatically. We will learn about this topic in part 7 of this course. It is also possible to write React as pure JavaScript without JSX, although nobody with a sound mind would do so. So the reason why nobody would do so is this is quite verbose, and it will take a really long time to write without this abstraction, which makes things look a lot easier with JSX that looks like HTML. It just makes life much easier. In practice, JSX is much like HTML with the distinction that with JSX you can easily embed dynamic content by writing appropriate JavaScript within curly braces. The idea of JSX is quite similar to many templating languages, such as Thymeleaf used along with Java Spring, which are used on servers. JSX is XML-like, which means that every tag needs to be closed. For example, a new line is an empty statement element, which in HTML can be written as follows. But when writing JSX, the tag needs to be closed. So it's just a self-closing tag. Okay, multiple components. Let's modify the file app.jsx as follows. So we can create a new component called hello. I'll just type it out this time. Div hello world, and then so in app.js we can remove all of this stuff and then return greetings and hello. So h1 is greetings, oops, and then hello. Okay, so this hello comes from this component here. And then if we look into here, it's greetings, the h1 tag, and then hello, which is this component here. It's just another div with a p tag with hello world as the text. We've defined a new component hello and used it inside the component app. Naturally, a component can be used multiple times. So if we just do 3 here, once again, there's hello, but this time it's 3 different times. So you can start to see the power of React, how it can create a component and have it reused multiple times quite easily. Note, export at the bottom is left out in these examples. Now and in the future, it is still needed for the code to work. Writing components with React is easy, and by components, even a more complex application can be kept fairly maintainable. Indeed, a core philosophy of React is composing applications from many specialized reusable components. Another strong convention is the idea of root component called app at the top of the component tree of the applications. Nevertheless, as we will learn in part 6, there are situations when the component app is not exactly the root, but is wrapped within an appropriate utility component. Okay, so props, passing data to components. It is possible to pass data to components using so-called props. Let's modify the component hello as follows. So we add an argument to the function called props, and here instead of hello world we do hello props.name. Oops. Names is missing in props. Okay, I think we can just leave that for now, and then just do name equals George, and then name equals Daisy. Yes, so now it says hello George and hello Daisy. So the prop is passed in when it's mounted. So George is passed in through here and then rendered here. So I think this has to do with ESLint that came with white, and it's complaining because it doesn't actually show the validation of the prop type. Right now it can be any type, but we want to change it so that it's a string. But you don't need to worry about that for now. So, um, okay, it's possible to pass the data component using so-called props. Let's modify the component. Now the function defining the component has a parameter props. As an argument, the parameter receives an object which has fields corresponding to all props the user of a component defines. The props are defined as follows. There can be an arbitrary number of props, and their values can be hard-coded strings or the result of JavaScript expressions. If the value of the prop is achieved using JavaScript, it must be wrapped with curly braces. Let's modify the code so the component hello uses two props. Okay, so here we have hello props name. You are props.age years old. Console.log props. And then here we have age. We have some hard coded age and name. And then so name, the first one is Maya. Age is 26 plus 10 plus 10. Second component has a prop name, and then age is age. Yep, so it looks like we've rendered the first one with Maya as the name and then 36 as the age. And let's just refresh. Yeah, okay. So then the second one, the name is the variable name Peter. The age is the variable age 10. And so when the first component gets mounted, this console log runs and then shows the prop of this first component, which as you can see as Maya, and age is 36. And then when this one gets mounted, it shows the props Peter and the age is 10. So this is where the code console log runs. The props sent by the component app are the values of the variables, the result of evaluation of a sum expression and a regular string. Component hello also logs the value of the object props to the console. I really hope your console was open. If it was not, remember what you promised. I promised to keep the console open all the time during this course and for the rest of my life when I'm doing web development. Software development is hard. It gets even harder if one is not using all the possible available tools such as web console and debug printing with console.log. Professionals use both all the time and there's no single reason why a beginner should not adopt the use of this wonderful helper methods that will make his life so much easier. So yeah, just they're stressing the importance of keeping this web console open, and it is quite important. It will make your life a lot easier as it provides plenty of information that you can use to help you with your web development. Possible error message. Depending on the editor you're using, you may receive the following error message at this point. Yes, this is the one that I mentioned before. It is not an actual error, but a warning caused by the ESLint tool. You can silence the warning React /prop types by adding the file to the next line. Okay, so here is the ESLint. This is the configuration for how we want to handle linting. And so we just add this, and this will silence the wording that we get from the editor. Yep, and now it's gone. So yes, lint. We will get to know ESLint in more detail in part 3. So for now, just know that ESLint is a way to ensure good code quality. It will warn you and like provide some errors for any mistakes that are in your code. So another one is like, for example, if I do const foo equals bar, as you can see, foo is declared but its value is never read. Foo is assigned a value but never used. So in other words, it's saying that this variable is never used anywhere, even though it's declared. So yes, it will show you these warnings / errors to help you with writing your code. That is the point of ESLint. Some notes. React has been configured to generate quite clear error messages. Despite this, you should at least in the beginning advance in very small steps and make sure you make sure sorry, I lost my place. Despite this, at least in the beginning, advance in very small steps and make sure that every change works as desired. The console should always be open. If the browser reports errors, it is not advisable to continue writing more code. Hoping for miracles, you should instead try to understand the cause of the error and, for example, go back to the previous working state. As we already mentioned, when programming with React, it is possible and worthwhile to write console.log commands which print to the console within your code. Also keep in mind that first letter of React components names must be capitalized. If you try defining a component as follows and use it like this, the page is not going to display the content defined with the footer component, and instead React only creates an empty footer element, i.e. the built-in HTML element instead of the custom React element of the same name. So you need to capitalize this for it to work, otherwise it'll just think that it'll just render out a footer, like an HTML footer element. If you change the first letter of the component name to a capital letter, then React creates a div element defined in the footer component, which is rendered on the page. Note that the content of a React component usually needs to contain one root element. If we, for example, try to define component app with without the outermost div element, so here, if we just remove this div, see what happens. We get an error, and the error says internal server error. Adjacent JSX must be wrapped in a closing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? So using a root element is not the only working option. An array of components is also a valid solution. However, when defining root component of application, this is not particularly wise thing to do, as it makes the code look a bit ugly. Because the root element is stipulated, we have extra div elements in the DOM tree. This can be avoided using fragments. So this is what the fragment suggestion is in this error message, i.e. by wrapping the element to be returned by the component with an empty element. Yes, so you can actually use this, and it won't render an extra element in the HTML. So if I do this, and then I look in elements, body, so it's in, remember it's in the HTML root component here, and then in main JSX it renders the app component. So that is here, and note how this empty element isn't actually rendered anywhere. So it goes from root div and then straight to the h1 tag, and then this is the hello, the first hello component, and then this is the second hello component. So for example, if I go back and then I change that to div, yes, notice how there's a div now here, um, but we don't actually need that extra div, so we can just do this. So we have this component and now compiles successfully, and the DOM generated by React no longer contains the extra div element. Yep. Do not render objects. Consider an application that prints the names and ages of our friends on the screen. However, nothing appears on the screen. I've been trying to find a problem in the code for 15 minutes, but I can't figure out where the problem could be. I finally remember the promise we made. Yes, I promise to keep the console open all the time during this course and for the rest of my life while I'm doing web development. The console screams in red. Objects are not valid as a React child. Found. Objects with keys, name, age. If you meant to render a collection of children, use an array instead. So this is an array of objects, and it just doesn't like that. The core of the problem is objects are not valid as React child, i.e. the application tries to render objects and it fails again. The code tries to render the information of one friend as follows. And this causes a problem because the item to be rendered in the braces is an object. Here's the object. In React, the individual things rendered in braces must be primitive values such as numbers or strings. The fix is as follows. So if we just copy that and then change it here, remove this because that's an extra. Yeah, so instead of rendering the object directly, we're rendering out the actual name, which is a primitive, the string, and then the age, which is also a primitive, a number. And we're doing that for both of the friends. So now the friend's name is rendered separately inside the curly braces, and age. After correcting the error, you should clear the console error message by pressing this red button, and then reload the page content and make sure no error message is displayed. Yes, so this was the oh no, so I never actually had the error message, but I can actually click this to clear it and then refresh, and that's fine. As a small additional note to the previous one, React also allows arrays to be rendered if the array contains values that are eligible for rendering, such as numbers or strings. So the following program would work, although the result might not be what we want. So if we try that, we have an array and then we're rendering that array directly. So what would happen? Yes, it looks like it's just concatenating the two strings together. In this part, it's not even worth trying to use a direct rendering of the tables. We will come back to it in the next part. So let's go back and just change this to what it was, and we'll just leave it like that. Okay, before we move on to, wait one sec. So we don't actually need this anymore because this component isn't actually being used. As you can see, instead of rendering with the hello component, we're just using this array of objects to render the name and the age. So let's just get rid of hello. Um, so in the next video, we'll work on the exercises. Oh yeah, so it actually shows these uh, uh, recommended way of structuring this photo structure. So we'll just do that. Let me just get out of the white, and then so we will make a new directory called course info, and then move all of this stuff here. Um, Actually, I'm gonna create a new. I'm gonna create a new. No, what I'm gonna do is I will remove the get in this directory and then move it here. So now it's all in course info. And then yes, and then I will make a commit. Let me just look at the commit logs. So we do part 1a course info. I think that should be the commit message. Yep, okay, and I think it's faded out because like if I just reload this, oops, no, that's not what I want. How do I reload? Actually, I think it's fine. So yeah, on in the next video we will start the exercises 1.1 and 1.2. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.